So,
Okay, you can go ahead
okay,
and start.
good. Afternoon,
You can go ahead
Okay,
and start.
good. Afternoon, everyone. Thanks. Hope you had enjoyable lunch and can stay awake. So this afternoon session, this is I think, number 4 in the series of training. We've done things on the annual supervision. We've done one on goals. And this afternoon, we're looking at the merit and promotion training. So, and this has been put together with Mark Lagramini and Wendy and Kim and myself. And Mark Lagramini was to be on, but unfortunately he broke his arm last week pretty seriously. So he's had been operated on this morning, I think. So thanks. So let's start off. Just get a bit of a sense of how you guys on the call feel about the annual merits and promotion, or not the annual, but the merits and promotion process. So I would invite you to stick into the chat session. How do you feel? Do you think when you think about the merits and promotion process, is it's A, it's pretty chill, everything's fine, it's not too bad. B, but I have a few questions. C, I am resigned to weeks of stress. Or D, it really freaks me out. So just let us know how there's no judgment on this. It's just to give us a sense of how people feel about this process. Freaks me out. Yeah. Thank you. Any other? I'm resigned to weeks. Yeah, I'm resigned to weeks of stress. A few more. Yep, no more stress. Maybe a couple more. Who we got there? How do you feel about it? And more stress. Okay, so we're not falling into the chill or not too bad zone. So that's useful feedback. And as we go on, next slide. So what are we trying to achieve? And I'll come back to some of those comments for that survey. What are we trying to achieve this afternoon? We want to reiterate the elements of a successful program. We're going to outline what we hope is a simpler option for preparing and submitting your merits and promotion. And then we're also going to provide some information on critical dates. Thanks. So we've got about 4 or 5 slides that come directly from Associate Vice President Wendy Powers, because in the end, she's the one that makes the decisions on the process. And so we asked her to share some slides, and this is what we have. I'm going to channel my inner Wendy. What we'd like to do is make the process less time-consuming, and that's both for the candidate and for the reviewers. But by the same time, while we're making it less time-consuming, we don't want to compromise any of the rigor or the high standards. And we also, though, what we do want to do is minimize or manage any disappointment associated with the process. The review process is setting the stage for subsequent reviews. You know, and this should be part of an ongoing, regular and honest, constructive process. Your expectations will change as your career progresses. And so when Wendy's, what is Wendy looking for in the process? She wants a well-written story, something she's referring to as a narrative that demonstrates the candidate knows where they're headed. And what a term she often uses in relation to that is increasing focus. Now that doesn't mean to say that you only work on one thing. Obviously, as extension people, you're often going to be approached about a whole range of topics, but what already happens is that many advisors, as they go through their career, they begin to develop expertise in certain areas. And so what Wendy is hoping is that, you know, that particular area of strength, you get an opportunity to highlight that, recognizing that there's a lot of other areas that you might be responding to. Now, when I say responding to, sometimes that means you're directing people to others. You don't have to be the expert in everything. Obviously, that's extremely difficult, if not impossible. So the idea is that each of us are developing some form of focus. And so that focus relates to the outcome. You'll have specific condition changes you're trying to influence. And it's an ongoing process that as you go through, your focus will be continually reflect your ongoing assessment in terms of needs and priorities. And then also this narrative or the story talks about the progress to date for the review review period. It's going to reflect your scholarly activities at a very aggregated level. but from the perspective of how those activities are making progress towards your intended outcomes. If that makes sense, it's like it's not about the detail, it's about telling a story about the impact you're making. And so you will draw on what's the sort of impacts you're making, and you support it with your scholarship and the creativity. It's an opportunity to highlight some of the evidence of your professional competency. You also get the opportunity to highlight your commitment to continuous improvement and also your commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity. So it's about this aggregated, it's not about all the individual detail. And I'll keep stressing that over and over because I've been learning too about this. It's sort of somewhat new to me. And so I'll try and stress what has been valuable to me in learning about this process. So the story conveys the trajectory of the candidate. And that trajectory increases as your career progresses. That is, even though the narrative is about your impact, impact takes a while. So the whole idea is to show you're on that pathway to impact. If you're further along in your career, great. This is what I've done, and this is the changes that are happening. If you're earlier in your career, you've got the opportunity to say, this is where I'm headed, this is what I'm trying to change, and this is my progress to date in leading to that change. What Wendy wants to see is the evidence, not just, we don't just say, oh, this is what I think, but she wants to see some evidence that supports that change or supports the path you're on. And you particularly in what Wendy is suggesting in this new sort of narrative thing, there's a short closing statement which allows you to reflect on where are you really headed? Where do you want to get to? And again, the sustained trajectory, that sort of real impact is the expectation of post-assistant rank. So beyond the story, the program narrative, the strongest, you don't have to list all the detail. It's like you can reference evidence in tables and you call that out in the narrative. And then also some of the things you want to refer to is you want to highlight your evidence of good citizenship, the leadership, the teamwork, service, mentoring, etc. And mentoring being particularly something for people further on in their career. Great. So what is Wendy not looking for? She's not looking for length. She is not looking for a complete list of everything a person did. It's not about the activities with no accomplishments, okay? She doesn't want to see that. And it's not about completing a checklist. It really is about telling a story. So to put it in perspective, what does a candidate really want to share that Wendy can read, digest, and synthesize and reflect on in about 90 minutes? That's about how much time Wendy spends on each of the packages about first time through. And so the reflection is on the package and the program as a whole. A short note on, and this is one I freely admit I'm less clear on. This is another one of Wendy's slides, because there's been a lot of questions about accelerations. And there's been a certain amount of disappointment and I'd say perhaps a little bit of lack of clarity on what this whole process is about. People are already expected to be doing really good work. You're already expected to have impact. So an acceleration is the same level of accomplishments, but in much less time. And I'm not going to go into the percent times there, you can see it. Wendy feels that an acceleration should be a rare event, once or twice in a career. And got to remember that the accomplishments have to be reflected in all areas. So it's not just about sort of, gee, look how well I did in this particular aspect, but you also have to exceed expectations in all the other areas. And I think one of the things we've heard when people have submitted their acceleration package, it's like, oh, it's like, just throw it out there and see if it sticks. And the concern there is, we're all human, and if we try for something and it's like, oh, just give it a go, there's nothing to lose, we would all suggest there is something to lose because it is disappointing. If you go for something and you don't get it, then you feel like, well, why didn't I get it? So really be realistic. When I was talking to Kim about this morning, she was saying, talk to some of the older people or even talk to Wendy to say, do you think I'm in a good shape to go for this?
Great. So I do want to mention a little bit about some of the supporting material that you'll be able to find as you're putting together your packets. So at the very top, there's the AHR website. Please go there, and then you'll see on the left we have the merit and promotion process and trainings, and we have the ebook dossier and examples as well. So those are good references. We're going to be putting up some more examples of this new narrative. We're working on some final edits right now so that you'll all have that to reference.
And just we're trying to make it easy for people to find the different materials. So you can go to the HR site, but you can also go to the learning and development site. And if you go to the page that's about office and team management, and if you click on the performance evaluation link, it'll take you through and help you get to some of the resources. And in particular, the next slide.
Sorry.
Yeah, what we did was, because this is somewhat new, we took those slides of Wendy's and we put them together in a single page summary of what is it that Wendy's looking for in terms of the elements of a successful program. So that sits there on the learning and development side, so you can get to that, and we can share the direct URL with people later if they want. Thanks.
Before we go on, Mark, can you look at Emily's question?
Right. So Emily had a question about driver. In much of the PRC reviews for accelerations, there were issues with candidates not clearly defining the single driver in the past that has been the directive, while also showing outstanding performance in the other categories. I'm not familiar with the process. Kim, do you have any comments on it?
Yeah, that still is the process, Emily and everyone. So when you're putting in for an acceleration, you're saying that, so depending on a number of criteria you have, so let's say you're an advisor, so you have 4 criteria that you're evaluated against. You're saying that in one of the 4 criteria, you're doing exceptional work, and that is what you're basing your acceleration request on. You must, however, remember that the other 3 criteria you have to show above normal progress towards as well. Unlike past PRs, I will make a comment here saying that we are not having a separate acceleration statement as we've done in the past. This year, if you're going to go up for an acceleration, you include it as part of your narrative.
Great, thanks. And I just stuck in thanks for that. And I just put in the link, in the chat session, the link to that paper that's on your screen now, Wendy's summary. Great. And so just a little bit of repetition in all this. It's like, what are we about? We really do want people to be successful. What does success looks like? That means being able to tell your story of impact. And at the same time, while doing that, particularly when reporting about your impact, we want to reduce the amount of stress that's involved and reduce the amount of time. And I can tell you too, I am new to this process, and I'm sharing some of the uncertainty, because Wendy asked me last year if I want to go up for the process, and I'm like going, I don't understand it. Why would I do that? So I just stepped back from it and said, I'll follow it like everyone else and learn a bit more. So I do get the idea of the time and the stress involved. And next one, please. So the other thing too is a little bit of chicken and egg, because what we've heard is, what does success look like? And first and foremost, it's about designing and implementing an impactful program. That's what comes first. Then second is being able to simply and effectively tell your impact story. And that could be through your blogs, it could be through your annual discussion with your supervisor, it could be through your merits and promotion. But I think sometime number 2 has got in the way of number 1. And I've heard people say, well, should I do that? Can I put it in my merit and promotions? And that seems really back to front. And so that's part of what we're trying to change in this process, is like, what do you see as an impactful program? And then secondly, give you the opportunity to share how successful and good that program is. Thanks, next. And also, just success is part of a process. So as you're building your success, you're starting with identifying your needs. Then you're going on and you're saying, well, what are the opportunities? Because not every need has an opportunity. And then you say, okay, this is my opportunity, but what's the difference I'm really trying to make? And then you can say, okay, out of that, you're developing your themes and goals. And then finally, you're implementing your plan. If we get all that right, then we're going to have an impactful program. Okay. One of the other things too is when we think about our annual evaluations and this also refers to the merits and promotion, it's the opportunity. The annual evaluation is the opportunity with your supervisor. The merits and promotion is the opportunity with Wendy to really highlight your impact and your progress towards your goals. And we just want to represent that with, you've got you've got somewhere where you're headed to. So that's why we really are putting a lot more focus and emphasis on having clear goals. What is it you want to change? What's the desired change you're about? You've obviously got a starting point, and then your merits and promotion or your annual evaluation, it's this opportunity to say, am I on track or not? Or, and hopefully you are, and this is the progress I've made to date towards the change I want to see. And then it's also the opportunity to adjust your goals. Franz, if you could mute yourself, please. I think you're coming through loud and clear. Thanks. The other thing too is that we've heard a lot about is a lack of clarity on expectations for the different levels. So what we've been doing is we've been working with various committees, and we've got a couple of different documents, but one in particular is a summary document that will be coming, looking at what are the expectations for me as I go through my career. So just to let you know, we have heard that it's a concern for people, and so we've been developing that.
Oh, sorry, technical difficulty.
Thanks, Kim. And just helping people, because we've talked a lot about goals, we've talked a lot about impact, and there is a logic to this whole process. You start off by, you do your needs assessment. Out of that, you're saying, well, what's the opportunity? What can you as an individual do given your skills and your circumstances? And then associate with that, you're saying, and this is the difference I'm trying to make. And those will be related to some condition changes. And then out of that, you're able to develop your themes and goals. And those themes or goals really become the core of your story and the core of your program. And then for each of these goals, so goals are more general and higher level, and it's like you contribute to goals. And then underneath that, then you'll have a series of objectives and activities that you're doing. And if we get this right, if we get the right activities, then there's like this if-then process. If I do these activities, then I achieve my objectives. If I get those objectives right, then I'm obviously contributing to my goals and themes. And if I do that right, then I'm working towards the impact I have, which links down then to that's the difference you were wanting to make. So, when you're putting your program together, look for that sort of consistency between what you're doing and where you're trying to get to. Thanks, Kim.
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit just about the ebook. So the ebook was reformatted this year with the help of the Academic Assembly Council Personnel Committee and the Peer Review Committee. Again, this is where you'll find it on the Academic HR website. On the left-hand side, you'll see it says PR, ebook, and dossier examples, and then in the big blue box, you'll see the download for the ebook. All titles are represented in one ebook this year, as opposed to last year and the year before we had it separated into different titles. So just one ebook. Please remember that the ebook does provide guidelines and references policy, but it also we want you to have the flexibility to tell your story and provide the documents that you think are necessary to support your merit and promotion packet. The intent then to develop your story that reflects your success and the highlighting that evidence, whatever that might be.
Great. And I do want to point out, it goes back to what Wendy talked about. It's like she's not into the bean counting. And the ebook, it provides some guidelines. It's not like a set of rules that you have to follow. The point is to allow you, it's like, so many of you have great programs. It's like just tell the success, tell your successes and share that and structure it around the themes and goals of where you're headed. Thanks.
So Mark, you want to answer Charles's question?
That comes later. Didn't you have a link for that? Doesn't that come down to the expectations? I think
So
we have that later. We have it
yeah,
in two spots. One, we have a draft expectations for your career, and then there's some content in the ebook as well, correct?
correct.
Yeah. So Charles, we can try and find that. I think I had looked up exactly where it was. We can try and find that again. Okay, so when you're thinking about, you know, preparing, again, let's keep in mind it's about hopefully simplifying, putting away, you know, reducing the amount of stress involved. What is required? You all have a position description, just make sure that's up to date. There'll be a cover page, a very simple one. There's like going to be simple templates for that. And then you can put together your program summary narrative. And we do have an example that's included in the ebook for that. And then the whole point is that you can have the supporting documents, but they're supporting, and you can, we'll do a little bit more about that in a moment, talking about that. And then if applicable, these other elements may be included: sabbatical leave plan, report, work plan, or performance improvement plan, and then the goals for the upcoming year. The goals thing, again, that's going to be built into your narrative. So your goals should be longer term going, but we've kept it in there for now, just as optional. Did you have any other comment on that, Kim?
Nope, that's good.
And thanks to Sue, who found the expectations, section 4, starting on page 28. Thank you, Sue.
I do want to talk briefly about position descriptions. For those of you that have been around for a while, you probably already have them, but please take a look at them again, see if they need any updating. We recommend you do it sooner than later because it is a process, and we don't want to have dozens of them, you know, sitting on my desk or marks the week before they're supposed to be uploaded. So go ahead and take a look. For those that have been here about 5 or 6 months or less, the initial position description draft comes from academic HR, and we are working on those so that you'll all have them by the February 1 start date. If you need an addendum, such as you've taken on an interim county director responsibility or role, there is an example and a template on the AHR website, but you can also contact me, and I can help you get the addendum together.
Okay, so this is the sort of, to me, the exciting bit that Wendy is sort of offering us as an option. And that's how she made it clear. It's like, you know, there's a certain amount of variability, but what she is thinks can really help people as you think about what is your narrative, and you can find it there. There's an example one that was put together in the ebook. It's just an example, but how do you there's some clear instructions in that. It's like to think about how to structure it. But I just want to go through briefly some of the elements. There is a sort of an opening sort of statement about your position, but then what you do is then you get into what your themes, and for each of your themes, you'll have some related goals and the trajectory that you're on. And so it really is about sharing what are your impacts, and showing how this is an opportunity for you to really talk about your program, and just to highlight, this is how it aligns with my clientele needs. This is how it aligns with the public value statements and the sorts of condition changes. And the idea there is that you blend in key examples, highlighting, you know, this was my theme, this was the impact I was headed towards, and this is the sort of scholarship that I'm using to get there. This is sort of an example of how my professional competence is fed into that change that I'm trying to make. You know, talk about the continuous improvement and how is that helping you move towards the impact that you're trying to get to. And the same thing too is like, as you're working towards your impact, how are you taking into account diversity, equity, and inclusion? I put down the bottom there, it's like, you know, again, the whole idea is it's got to be relative to what's expected for you. And I think this is particularly people early in their career. I think there's been a certain fear of like, well, what is good enough? What is expected? So we continue to work on that. And there are some criteria outlined in the ebook, and that would be the section 4, starting on page 28. Again, thanks, Sue. But also we do have the document that's sitting on the learning and development site, which talks about through your career, what generally is expected for those positions. And that was basically it. And so again, you know, highlighting, going back to the idea of not being about bean counting, you do need some documentation to support your program summary. It's not like, look at all the things I did, but it's like, you know, this is what I did, and this is an important thing I did that is helping me make the difference. And you can present that information in different forms, and you can, you know, we're not saying everything has to be new. It's like there's traditional ways to include information in various tables, but also if you choose to put it in an alternate format, that's fine. And so examples there is it could be in the tables, it could be reflected in past goals, or Wendy also talked about perhaps you include in it what might be an enhanced CV highlighting your achievements and where you are in your career. That's yours, Kim.
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm going to talk a little bit about Project Board, DanRusX, and Interfolio. So hopefully you've all been on Project Board and have been entering your activities, your clientele contact information, your FTE and whatnot. That Project Board is something that you should hopefully have the time to go in year-round to be entering in information. You can click on the review and compile, then download as you get closer to that February 1st deadline, to then compile all that information into an easily editable Microsoft Word document that you can then edit and save as a PDF and upload into Interfolio. So remember, Project Board is the ANR website to gather all the information. We also gather information and use it for federal and state reporting as well. If you have questions about Project Board, you can talk to Kit Alves or Chris Hansen. The document that's downloaded from Project Board goes into Interfolio. Interfolio is the review system. It is currently not open for upload. I'm hoping to have that done in the next week or so. I had to do some house cleaning to clear out last year's reviews. Once it is open, Interfolio will be sending you an email saying that it is now ready for you to upload your information in. DanRusX is for those academics who have been here for 2 years or longer. That is where you have your past project and clientele information. If you're having a multi-year review or a promotion where you have to report on a larger time frame, you'll want to make sure to go into DanRusX, go to Data Recap to get your information so that you can then put it into that document from Project Board. If you have any questions about the DanRusX retrieval, talk to Chris Hansen. And then hopefully, just for some of you that are new, if you haven't noticed it, on your portal page, you will see the Project Board link there on the right-hand side. And then once Interfolio comes up and is online for the new year, you'll see in the middle section under Academic Program Review. Oh, I got to move the arrow down a little bit. You will see the link for this year's review. And let's see. And then just want to talk a little bit about the PRC. Remember, when you're doing, you're writing up your narratives, the PRC and ad hoc committees as well are made up of academics from a variety of program backgrounds. So you want to make sure that your story, that your narrative is enjoyable to read, but also that it is easily understood by people from other programs. You know, you might, you know, if you're a 4-H advisor, you might have a natural resource advisor as one of your review committee members. So, you know, if you're going to use acronyms, it would always be good to write them out or supply a table or something so that it is easy to understand by all folks. So yeah, reviewers may not be familiar with you or your specific program, so please put in the narrative and in your supporting documents what you need to support and tell your story. And some important dates: all merit and promotion actions are due on February 1. Confidential letters, if you are required to have confidential letters for your action, Interfolio, it will say so in Interfolio. You will be required to submit names and email addresses, and then Interfolio sends out the request for the letters. Please, as lesson we learned from last year, just the name and the email. Don't put a name, comma, and a title and a bunch of other characteristics. We wind up sending letters hundreds of times that way. It's just a mess. But then if you are asked to be a letter writer, please note that the deadline for submission is March 13th. If you are a supervisor, all of your reviews for the people that for merit promotions, as well as those that have submitted annual evaluations or goals only, are due on March 20th.
Okay, and again, just want to put in a reminder that the simple summary of what we're talking about there is available in that document, and we shared the link. That's available on the Learning and Development site. And then the next one is questions and reflections. And I don't know, Kim, if in the past you stopped the recording at this stage or you kept it going. I'm not sure what you planned on doing. And then what we will do is Kim will cut and paste. We haven't done this in the past, but Kim will cut and paste the survey link down the bottom there. We'd like some feedback on the training. Was it useful? Something we want about content, usefulness, and the presentation style. So please provide us some feedback on that, and then we'll open it up just if there's any questions or reflections on what we've covered today. Maybe we can try the chat, and then if you've got any questions, or we can unmute as we go, depending on how many questions we've got. Otherwise, thanks everyone. If you don't have any questions and reflections and you're happy, we wanted to respect people's time, and please do feel free to carry on, have a great afternoon. But if you do want to hang around for questions and reflections, we're on. Kim, can you, before anyone logs off, can you get that survey copied across? Oh, great, thank you.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So just.
And this is?
This is Emma, sorry.
Oh, great, thanks, Emma.
I just had a question. The slides that Wendy provided, she was discussing the expectations on accelerations, and the 1324 rule was tied into the accelerations, and I'm just sort of curious why the shift has happened with that, because I mean, it still ostensibly does say in the ebook that the 1324 is not an acceleration and that there are not advanced expectations on it. So I just was sort of curious what the mindset was, you know, which one is accurate. Are they being treated like an acceleration or not?
Right, Kim, do you have that, or is that something we need to ask Wendy to get back for Emma?
So for the slide, I think it was just a matter of we lumped it on one slide, but Emma is right. A 1324 is not considered an acceleration in the traditional sense of what we have been talking about accelerations for. The 13 and 24 month rule is only applicable to those academics in their first term who have less than the normal period of review. So for instance, for advisors on 2-year terms, your first action would normally occur at 24 or more months, but the 1324 month rule gives you the opportunity, if you've had at a minimum of 13 months, to go up early. So it is, but it is not considered an acceleration in the traditional. You have to show exceptional work in one of the criteria and above average in the other 3. You do have to, what you do have to show though is that you have done what would be considered a normal amount of work for somebody that is following the 24 month normal period in less time. So if you have, say, 20 months, and you can show that you have done in 20 months what somebody would normally do in 24 months, then you can go up under the 13 and 24-month rule.
So while it's a special case, some of the elements, and I think that's why Wendy originally put it together, there's still certain elements that would be the same. Thanks for the question, Emma.
Yeah, just quick follow-up. So the expectations for that's in that draft document that Mark, you just sent a link for. Is that correct for the term, essentially?
I think, okay.
Yeah. Thank
okay.
you.
Anything else? I don't want to chop you off, but we're still recording, I see. I don't want to chop you off, but I also don't want people to hang around if we've covered and people are happy. So again, please do fill out the survey. This is something new that Kim and I introduced. In the past, we apparently didn't do evaluations of the training, so we do want feedback to know if we're getting it right. So